Two weeks ago, we talked about the difference between fantasy and sci-fi. We discovered, well, we didn't discover, we just dipped our toes into this concept of subgenre fantasy. Mm-hmm. So we decided we are going to delve deeper, because we said we would, into the subgenre of fantasies.
Did you strain your arm going like this?
No.
Yeah. I figured you would one of these days. Every time you're making a point on the podcast, you're like,
Josh has got that
finger.
wag.
He does a finger wag.
Yeah, I do notice. I do the hand gestures.
You do a lot. I
like
like to stick one in here, but you hit us with this one. Sometimes I'm like, I'm gonna tear that off one day.
Just grab it. Okay, so I found a website that really does the work for us.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So this is subgenres of fantasy.
Yes. So we are going to list them, and we are going to kind of give the examples that they give here, as well as there's elements. They give specific typical elements you find in these specific subgenres.
Yeah.
And
so
we can break through them.
Specifically, 2 weeks ago, it was sci-fi.
It was broad.
The difference between sci-fi and
Fantasy.
We went into fantasy. And now we're officially just breaking down fantasy.
Yes, we're not touching sci-fi.
We're
today.
breaking down the fantasy.
I believe there are
genre.
17 subgenre that this article's
this
covering.
Article, yeah.
I think there's really over 100. However,
wait, you think there's enough that we could make up our own genre of? Okay, we got to make up our own.
It's like naming stars. You can do it, but where does that money really go? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and they've all kind of been named.
You mean you're paying somebody?
I want to do that. Like, so they give us examples.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to pull a different example. If you can think of a different example that fits this subgenre, let us know. If you can't,
Also, leave comments as we go. Mm-hmm. I want to hear what you guys have to think as well. High fantasy / epic fantasy.
Yeah.
Typical elements. So the main example was Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
Typical elements:
Mr. Tolkien, sir.
Lengthy journeys, dragons, magicians, assassins, legendary swords, royalty, medieval societies, battles, a hero or heroine of humble origins, exotic names, a map on the land, a map. On the inside cover. Okay, so you notice when I said this 2 weeks ago, I said I brought up maps when we were talking about this.
They're saying high fantasy. I would just call this like the classic fantasy.
This is high fantasy.
This is the
classic
most common
fantasy. Yes.
And a lot of stuff falls into classic fantasy, but high fantasy is epic fantasy. Right?
Yeah.
Because you can have classic fantasy with this kind of stuff without it being epic fantasy.
Yeah.
You know?
Willow. That's one I say.
Yeah, there you go. That's
example.
high fantasy.
Example that's high fantasy.
Yeah.
There's more. We're going to show them, but I don't want to cheat.
I also would say that a lot of these kind of stories have, they tend to have a specific kind of prose to them.
Yeah.
So, especially with Lord of the Rings, it's going to read like an old story.
Yeah.
Right?
This is not a movie. The Door Within. Would that be like high fantasy?
No, that doesn't fall within.
No. What? That's Portal. That's Portal fantasy.
That's Portal fantasy.
Which we're going to get to.
I don't know all the fantasies.
Which has high fantasy elements.
But it's ultimately Portal.
But ultimately, the what defines it is Portal.
It literally says the door within.
The journey.
Okay.
The journey is what makes this epic.
I didn't know there was a door fantasy.
Portal.
Portal fantasy.
Yeah.
That's what Narnia falls under.
Okay. The journey is what makes this epic fantasy. Like Wheel of Time.
Let's go to the next one then.
Sanderson
Because if we have to go through 17, that's going to be...
All right. Other examples.
Yeah, Earthsea, Assassin's
Final
Apprentice.
Empire.
Lies of Locke Lamora. Name of the Wind.
Mm-hmm.
Game of Thrones.
I thought that said Assassin's Creed.
Game of Thrones will show up again later.
Assassin's Creed is Portal.
Six of Crows.
Okay,
Emperor's Blades.
So
I was thinking Game of Thrones, but I thought that would be like drama fantasy or something like that. I thought that
it's going to show up again later. We got low fantasy, things like Harry Potter. So typical elements: supernatural creatures, hidden magical spaces, real-world mythological influences, characters discovering the existence of supernatural forces. These are the typical elements for a low fantasy story. Things like Harry Potter. What else?
If they didn't have a portal, most of Narnia stuff.
That's so
somewhat, yeah.
But you guys remember like Spiderwick Chronicles?
Yes.
Or Arthur and the Invisibles?
No.
Or Arthur and the Minimoys?
I liked the idea. The concept of Spiderwick was good, but
They stole my idea.
But they did.
It's often magic that takes place in our world.
So, okay, can I side story real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
When I was like 11 years old, I was a little boy. I had just watched Lord of the Rings for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I created a story called The Book of Fairy Tales. Yeah. And it had this concept that if you read it, things come to life. Mm-hmm. Okay? You open kind of like this ever-expanding world or universe that kind of melds into yours. And then I realized, and then like a year later, they came out with Spiderwick Chronicles, which wasn't exactly that, but it was dang close. And that was the first time I ever felt ripped off.
No, they had the idea before you, but you didn't know about that story, so you came up with one that was basically that Spiderwick. And then
we did that. John Mark and I did that. We had to experience that many times. Yep. Many times. Because I
couldn't even imagine.
We would watch something like Gladiator when we were too young, right? And be like, oh man, the Gladiator scene is really awesome, but we had also watched Ben 10. So we were like, what if there was like an intergalactic gladiator match and they would steal people from different planets? Mm-hmm. And have them fight each other in these gladiatorial matches.
I want to watch
we realized that there were several. There's like Planet Hulk does that.
Okay.
They did that. But when we realized that our idea wasn't original, we were really let down.
Mm-hmm. Space Jam also does that.
Space Jam. We were just like, oh man.
The basketball game though.
Do they fight?
We're like, oh man, we made up all these really cool characters. Mm-hmm. You know,
you can still do it. Everybody be ripping off in Hollywood these days.
Well, you don't realize that till later.
I mean, James Cameron's doing it with Dancing with Wolves.
Yeah.
Okay, so other examples of
Artemis
low fantasy,
Fowl, absolutely.
So Artemis Fowl, War of the Oak, City of Bones, Twilight, Silver Storm.
I will say
Shiver, Storm, two different ones.
I will say that. Harry Potter also defined the
Stormfront
magical school or school type.
Yes.
Fantasy.
Yes.
School type fantasy.
Or like Wednesday, they just came out.
Yeah.
That's a school type. Magic
a low
fantasy.
Type.
Yeah, low fantasy.
All right.
Wait a minute.
Let's move on.
So these
Portal
fantasy types are more of
they're all fantasies.
No, you'd call them more like trope fantasies.
It's subgenres. It's one usually big trope that defines what genre you're in.
Yeah.
So it's essentially when a trope grows up into an adult, it becomes a genre.
So it's like when a shrew becomes a mouse,
a mouse, and then a mouse becomes a rat.
Yeah.
Based on Pokemon logic.
Okay.
Yeah. So
we got portal fantasy.
Portal fantasy.
All right.
Narnia.
So typical elements. Magical portals. Yes. You got it.
Lots of animes.
What's another good portal? Harry Potter has portals.
Yeah, but it's not a portal fan. It's going
Dragon Tales.
Dragon Tales have a
portal.
portal.
A portal? Yeah.
Good. Deep cut.
I was thinking of what did they say? I wish to live in a dragon or land of heart, something like that.
What's that one? You guys remember that TV show? It had the kids, but it was in like an electronic thing. It was informational.
Yes, and they had like a
bird.
Yes,
the bird.
Yes, Cyber Chase.
Thank you.
Dang it, dude.
Woo! Oh, that was good. Cyber Chase was a solid show.
I know the name. I know I've seen it. I can't recall what happens in Cyber Chase.
I don't
or
know.
characters.
I don't remember except for I remember the bird. I remember the characters. I don't know what happened.
I can't even recall what. I can't visualize Cyber Chase. I just know the name.
I
What
can
is that
visualize
from?
the bird, the beak of the
There's
bird.
a little robotic bird.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
a bunch of kids. They're always going into different worlds and learning things about like geography and math and stuff.
Yeah.
Dang it! I know I've seen this show. So
fun.
other examples, you got
Alice in Wonderland.
Peter Pan,
Yeah.
First Star on the Right and Straight On Till Morning.
No,
Portal Fantasy.
because they don't go.
Alice
to a
in
portal.
Wonderland, the rabbit hole. Portal Fantasy.
Yes, but never.
Neverland.
Peter,
this
Peter Pan. They
Second
don't.
Star to the Right and Straight On Till Morning.
No,
the
they
portal.
fly. It's a real place.
But
No, they don't. It's a
but-
portal. They have to fly in that direction. They
it's
hit the portal.
I think it's the closest one to define Peter Pan is Portal. I don't
Yes.
think there's another huge trope that really defines it. Another
Hey,
genre.
I'm gonna create. This is the one I'm gonna create. Is for
Oh,
Peter
having to travel to the magical land where you get lost and then eventually find it.
Pan. No, I'm gonna name it.
Long
They're
journey
gonna
to
snatch you.
get snatched.
Get snatched. Fantasy.
Fantasy.
I would stay away from Snatch
Yeah,
in general.
probably.
Just for a title.
Especially when kids are
Our
involved.
theme song is
Yeah.
"They're climbing in your window, they're snatching your people."
All right,
up."
look. Urban fantasy, contemporary fantasy. So, typical elements: cities, secret, supernatural, underworld, hidden passageways, modern weaponry, blah blah blah.
Arcane.
Blah,
What? No.
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 blah. No, that's different.
Arcane is steampunk.
So,
Never mind.
I haven't seen any of these examples. Have you seen any of these? War of the Oaks. Did you see that? Stormfront.
Angel Fall.
City of Bones.
I don't think I have. I don't think I know any of these.
Man, we gotta educate ourselves on the
So
No,
I would
I've
say
never
urban
couldn't-
fantasy.
Fantasy.
in modern weaponry, slang, colloquial language. I would say.
Do you have an example?
I feel like I do.
I don't think I have any example. This is actually. This seems like a
No.
genre. That's
Grimm. Did you guys ever watch TV show Grimm?
No,
I've never
but I
seen
feel
it.
like I have one. I just it's on the tip of my tongue. I don't know.
Would that Will Smith Bright film? Would
yeah,
that be considered
yeah,
urban
yeah.
fantasy?
That would.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So that Netflix. It was Netflix, right?
I feel like there's a whole bunch of examples of this.
It's all right. I
All
threw one out.
escaping me.
I threw one out. We have a lot to get to,
Mm-hmm.
so we'll have more examples. Paranormal or paranormal romance.
Blech. Keep
Fantasy.
going.
Twilight. The
Everybody
major.
knows
That's
this one.
very
The major offender?
Nobody cares about these.
Hold on. We got to shout it out. Some people like this. Warm Bodies. Half to the
I
Grave.
Love Warm Bodies.
You love Warm Bodies?
I love Warm Bodies. It's such a
It's
good
a pretty
movie.
good film.
No, it's a weird film.
It's amazing.
Fallen. Yeah, and Twilight. So vampire, fairies, werewolves, angels, demons. I guess that one show on Netflix, Lucifer, that'd probably be considered
Probably.
paranormal fantasy. Zombies, ghosts, psychics, love triangles.
Yep.
Ugh.
Okay, so fantasy romance, high fantasy romance.
Wait, is that what we
Typical elements, medieval societies, royalty.
So this is like romance mixed with high fantasy, epic fantasy.
Warlike female characters.
So you're
Warrior-like
often
female.
on like an epic adventure, but there's a big romance thing tied in.
And
So,
sex
like,
and magic and
A
betrayal
lot
and
of
cruelty.
Disney princess films. I like Beauty and the Beast.
Tangled.
Yeah, these are all
most
romance
Disney
fantasies.
princess.
Yeah,
films.
there's often a big adventure with the romance.
Yeah.
yeah, and there's even some good ones. I mean, in some ways, even some classics, like what is it called? Like maybe Anna Karenina or something. That might be
Did you
considered.
stutter?
No, and that's her name, Anna Karenina. Anna
No,
Karenina.
no, no, no.
Are you
No,
good?
you're just.
Are you having a stroke?
Anna Karenina. That's the name.
You probably mean like Anna Karenina. That's probably it, right?
No, Anna Karenina.
Anna Karenina.
Friggin'
I'm yanking your chain, dog.
You know I'm right. Though,
yes,
right?
I know you're right.
Tug.
Okay, I don't know if that's a good example, but it's one that
Probably.
comes to my brain. The next one's young adult fantasy. YA fantasy. This is a popular, man. This is real popular.
So a lot of these like romance ones cross over. So you're gonna get
a lot of these cross over with each other.
Hunger Games has a big romance thing. Shadow and Bone, Twilight. These are all gonna be similar, but the big one that defines this is
Vampires Academy.
Yeah. What is this one?
What this?
Yeah, young adult. Yeah, there's often like it's very much centered on usually like a girl.
Yeah. This is a very teen girl story.
Teen girl.
So typical elements is like we throw in teen girl, but then you got orphans.
Vampire that's the
Vampire
show.
Diaries.
That's what
Absolutely.
I was thinking of that show. I just couldn't. It was that.
High school or school-like setting. Adult mentors, first romances, hidden powers or skills, sky high maybe. Not really.
That's that's more of a school centered.
Coming of age dilemmas. This
Love triangles. Did it say that?
No, it didn't. It did not.
Mary Sue's.
We get it. Scroll down.
Okay, children's fantasy.
Okay.
Typical elements include orphans, unhappy children, cruel or absent parents, princesses, monsters, both friendly and unfriendly, dragon tales, fairy tale influences, secret portals, tests.
Yeah. This is what created the adult childs in their 30s that we have running around today.
That's right. The millennials?
Yeah. The ones that are angry that they're not princesses, that hate their parents, and still kind of live in fantasy worlds.
Someone who thinks of themselves as a character in a child's fantasy is going to be president one day.
Yeah, that's whack.
Either Mr. or Madam President.
Or they them president.
Or they them president.
If we get,
I think that's a generation below.
Yeah,
that's the most they thems. That's a higher probability.
No,
that's your
yeah, we get it.
Same generation.
Okay, no, it's not. 95 was the cutoff.
All right.
95 was the millennial cutoff. Examples include The Never-Ending Story.
Okay.
Alice in Wonderland. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. The Chronicles of Narnia. Peter Pan. Like we said, there's crossover. All right. Caroline. The Northern Lights. And so on.
Completely skipped over Matilda. Shout outs to Matilda. Hey. That's an epic movie, by the way.
Fairy tale
retellings. So typical elements. This is actually confusing.
Is this like every single remake of Romeo and Juliet? Kind of.
What examples do they have at the bottom so I can kind of get an idea? Yeah. So you're any like retelling of Grimm fairy tales?
Okay.
So I think they have Beastly. Wasn't that the one with it's Beauty and the Beast?
Basically, yes, it was Beauty and the Beast.
And
Vanessa Hudgens.
The Beast was a bald dude with tattoos.
Yeah, he looked like Ryan Reynolds as the first.
He's
Deadpool. First Deadpool.
So basically a normal guy. Nowadays, a normal guy.
A dude with alopecia.
Yeah, and tattoos.
What alopecia was the Beast curse?
They were like
How rude.
He is he's a handsome bald man with tattoos. It's like, okay, so
bro, we have that everywhere.
That's like the desired guy nowadays.
That's right.
You know,
and scars too. He had scars.
Did he have scars?
He had scars for no reason. I think he had scars because he got in a lot of fights.
I don't remember.
Typical elements, curses that need to be broken, like Snow White. You know what I'm saying? Witches, Snow White. Wild forests,
Snow White.
Snow White. What do you know?
Princesses
and princes.
That's like Snow White.
What? Evil queens or kings?
Oh, that's almost exactly like Snow White.
Monsters?
Snow White.
Wolves?
Probably Snow White.
Romance. Snow White gets an A+.
What is dwarves at?
Snow White gets an A+.
Yeah.
For
doing all the things.
For hitting fairy tale retellings fantasy genre.
Personally, I like Beauty and the Beast more.
Yeah, that's true.
I love me some.
And they got wolves for sure.
Oh, I got one for this.
Hold on. This is a good one. Sword and sorcery. Sword and sorcery, heroic fantasy. All right.
There can only be one.
Highlander.
Highlander.
right,
That's
typical
close. That's
example.
close to this and historic fantasy. That's almost both. I would say it's more this.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let me give the typical elements: mighty heroes, damsel in distress, battles,
Yeah.
magic, swordplay,
That's it.
romance,
Yeah.
moral
Swordplay.
ambiguity,
Oh.
action, and conflict.
Wait, what is it called again? What's heroes or swords?
It's called
swords
Sword and Sorcery,
Heroic
fantasy.
fantasy.
The main example in this article is Conan the Barbarian.
Dude, Elric.
Never watched Conan.
Elric is on there.
nice.
Yes. Yes.
So this is like as classic and epic and hero as possible. We fall into this.
I feel
Yeah.
like when I think of this genre, I just think of the 80s. Like,
Yeah.
I just think the 80s.
Yeah, because every good sword and sorcery heroic fantasy had like a
Yeah.
a metal band to go with it
Yeah.
with matching cover art. You know what I'm saying?
Like this.
Dude, we're talking like lightning in the background. Probably Toto playing on the guitar. Yeah.
Just the good old
it's like
days.
everything I think of for Highlander.
Like-
Lightning, Queen playing in the background. What was the song they played?
I don't remember.
The Queen soundtrack for Highlander.
Bohemian Rhapsody? No.
Slaps. No.
I don't know it. Okay, so we're gonna have to hit these a little quicker.
I think it was like, here we are,
Yeah.
born to be kings. Oh, man.
Okay, can we hit these pretty quickly?
Yeah.
All right,
Sorry.
medieval fantasy, author and fantasy.
Arthurian.
Arthurian.
So King Arthur.
Oh,
Okay.
gotcha.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so typical elements: royalty, arranged marriages.
This is going to be like your base fantasy. Like, there's not really going to be
The Last Duel.
a magic sword.
Battles,
right?
dragons, wizards, quests, knights.
It's closer to like our medieval
Yeah.
history, but kind of alternate. So
Societies, legends,
What's
swords.
the one with Matt Damon? Is it called The Last Duel?
The last duel.
no,
yes.
that's historic. That's not fantasy.
Oh,
That's based on real history.
well then.
I think there'd be a
I
good
thought that was
addition
fan-
to this little
Any
list.
like King Arthur thing,
Yeah, yeah.
you know?
If you were gonna have one that said prima nocta, it would fit here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Historical fantasy.
That's where you're gonna get into stuff that's taking place in our history, but sort of is pseudo.
Yeah, fantasy.
Yeah, taking, it's all.
Yeah, mythological
Like,
influences.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what we're going for.
I would say Wrath or Clash of the Titans is like a historical fantasy
Okay.
because it technically takes place in our world, and
But
it's
in
based
an
on
ancient gods,
ancient
Greeks
history.
version
Right.
of what the world was.
Yeah.
So it's taking inspiration. Yeah, well, I'm trying to think of another good one. Would like maybe something like not I am freaking what is it called? Braveheart. Would that fit into it?
No.
What does Braveheart fit in? That feels like
It's
historical
history.
fantasy.
No, it's
Just
based,
straight up
it's
history?
based on a historical character. Yeah.
To what lengths do you think they have to go for it to be considered historical fantasy? Like how stretching of the truth?
You gotta be. It's being like if we were to do King Arthur,
Yeah.
Throw dragons in there.
throw some dragons, throw Merlin, throw in legit spells and shields and
Kind of like Quest for Camelot.
yeah,
Nice.
Ooh,
yeah.
That's a solid.
And then you
Kid
get
in King Arthur's court.
historical
Yeah.
fantasy.
Y'all remember Kid in King Arthur's court?
Yep.
I don't.
Heck yeah. I'm wanting high fives today.
Did you ever see that one MacGyver episode where he time
Yes.
traveled to King Arthur's?
That sounds awesome.
no.
You're
MacGyver's
right,
a sick show though.
Yeah.
Not the new one. The one with
Why would you
Richard D.
even
Anderson.
reference the new one?
Because you have
MacGruber.
to
Comic
Richard D.
That's
Anderson.
MacGruber.
comic
The new one.
fantasy. All right, typical elements: ridiculous or pathetic characters, quirky.
Yeah, satire.
Okay,
I
so
love
what's the most? Your mother was a hamster. Your dad smelled of elderberries.
Elderberries? Monty Python.
Monty
Monty
Python,
Python.
the
Yeah.
most
What is
traditional
it?
comic
Comic
fantasy.
fantasy?
Yes.
Oh,
something funny.
Comedic fantasy,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah,
That's the same thing. Comic
they're almost the
fantasy.
same. Yeah. I this is instantly Terry Pratchett for me.
Yeah,
Is
everything Discworld.
everything Discworld.
That's all funny. Science fantasy. All right, so this is kind of
Yeah, so this is gonna
close to science fiction, but not quite. Science fantasy.
Yeah.
Okay,
So-
wait, then give examples then. What's the difference?
Typical elements: fantastical planets and alien races, magical technology, grand divine or supernatural forces at work, Victorian era influences. This
So,
is where we're getting into
Almost
Star
think
Wars.
of almost think of
Ooh.
like sci-fi but with magic.
Oh,
like Star Wars.
Jupiter's Ascending.
Yeah, I think that could be
Yeah,
science
that's
fantasy.
they're very historic. I mean, like it's aliens, but it's like very historic in world. What do you? World. when they're taking a world to make them older, what would you call that? I don't know. Move on, because we're
Okay.
not gonna remember.
Interstellar, possibly.
No.
You sure?
Yeah.
Science fantasy.
That's science fiction. What's like science and magic? You know?
Star Wars.
What do they have here?
Okay, Dragon Fight, Cinder, the knife of never letting go.
Shadows of Self. I feel like I've read Shadows of Self. I'm not sure. Maybe.
I haven't seen any of this. The 5th season. Don't know.
No.
It's
yeah.
a harder one to define, I guess.
Let's move to one that's very well known. Grimdark
Grimdark.
fantasy. All right. Typical elements: thieves, assassins, torturers,
You can say
crimes,
murder,
you
raiding,
know, yeah,
violence,
rape.
corrupt,
Ooh,
rulers.
I shouldn't
Yeah,
say that.
Probably shouldn't say that. I said raid,
No.
raiding,
Raiding.
like pirates, like in the Pirates movies.
Yeah.
They were in Pirates of the Caribbean. They always said raid, plunder, and pillage.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, raid. That's what. You
Okay,
gotta
so Game of Thrones does fall
Yeah,
into
we-
this
we-
category. We see it
They,
here.
that's
Yeah,
what we
Lies
talked
of
about
Luck.
last week.
do. Lamora, the blade itself. Oh man.
Yeah. Price
yeah.
of Thorns,
All
The Black
these.
Company. There's a lot of different ones.
Mhm.
I would say. Okay, hold on. I might have another example for historical fantasy. Did you watch Black Flag?
Yeah, a little bit.
You watch Black Flag?
A
I
little bit.
wonder if that fits into that, or if that's just grimdark fantasy.
No, if it's based on like
No.
our history,
Yeah,
historical.
it's a fictional
may have-
story based on
it may
like
have
real
grimdark.
and fake pirates.
It may have grimdark elements.
Yeah. Okay. Gothic fantasy, dark fantasy. So ghosts, graveyards, cryptic, kind of like Wednesday.
Yeah, they have Coraline in here. I would, yeah, absolutely.
I remember what I was going to say about Jupiter's Ascending. World harvesting.
World harvesting.
Harvesting a world.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
For their whatever they need.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that
Like
would.
the Clone Wars.
What would you? I feel like Dune is definitely science fiction, but it also has an element of science fantasy.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the guy doing? Is that a bell? Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a bell.
Yeah.
He's calling the evil spirit.
What is that? I can't
This is
read
Gothic
it. The light's in the
fantasy.
way. What does that say?
Sabriel.
I can't read it. That light's in the way.
Sabriel.
Sabriel.
So Gothic fantasy or dark fantasy. We're talking graveyards, crypts, tombs, zombies, monsters, necromancers, ruins, haunted castles,
Adam's Family.
runes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Addams
Addams
Family
Family
is
would
it.
fall in
Wednesday
there.
falls into that. Some examples they have here. Something wicked. This way comes.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these we just haven't seen, so we don't need to name them all. I think we're getting close to the
Weird.
bottom. The new weird and typical elements, gritty, realistic, fictional settings, science fiction and fantasy tropes.
Doesn't follow a
non-typical
lot of
story
the
structure.
typical stuff. Like, so it's got
Yeah.
Annihilation on there. We watched that. That was very
Yes.
Didn't follow kind of like typical tropes. Very ethereal.
And
yeah.
it's called the new weird. The new weird.
It was weird.
Let's
It
go
didn't
through
feel
these
very-
last few quick.
That's
Is this
it.
the last
That's
one?
it.
Okay.
That's it.
Cool.
That was 17, guys.
Very fun.
So if that's about pretty dang extensive. You can go deeper, but I don't think it's necessary. You can pretty much fit almost anything or one story into a couple of these, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to go much past this amount. I think
Okay.
this covers it pretty much.